Carolina's Field, Forest, and Water, a South Carolina Governor's School for Agriculture at John De La Howe Aggie Media Podcast. Join us today with our special guest, Andrew Leapart, Chief Engineer for Operations with the South Carolina Department of Transportation. And now your hosts, Will Cutshaw, Garland Wilson, and special guest host, Laura Hutto.
Welcome to this edition of Carolina Field, Forest, and Water. My name is William Cutshaw, and this is my co-host Garland Wilson and special edition Laura Hutto.
Our guest today is Mr. Andrew Leapart, the Chief Engineer for Operations at the South Carolina Department of Transportation. Mr. Leapart earned his civil engineering degree from Clemson University and leads SCDOT's statewide operational planning, safety, and infrastructure improvement initiatives.
Today, he is meeting with our South Carolina Governor's School for Agriculture Aggie Media team to discuss the SCDOT plays in supporting South Carolina's $51 billion agriculture industry and the future of transportation. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Glad to be here. Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Okay. To start, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and what experience shaped you to who you are today?
Sure. I'm a native of Batesburg, Leesville, South Carolina, and have lived in Lexington County my entire life. After graduating high school, I attended Clemson, as Garland mentioned, and got interested in engineering and the civil part. I did a summer intern program with DOT, had a good summer, and ultimately that became my career. So I've been with DOT a little over 30 years now.
So were you surrounded by engineers growing up, or did your interests develop around engineering, or did you just come into it?
Yeah, I think some ways I was around some engineers that I don't know that I was really cognizant of that, but I was always strong in math and science in high school, so that kind of guided me there. And you get to college and you realize there were a lot of people kind of like you that had those interests and strengths, and so that kind of led me down that path. Civil is a really broad-based engineering. You do a little bit of electrical and mechanical, and it just, it exposes you to all the engineering fields. I enjoy the outdoor part of it. Civil, as much as any engineering, gets you outside as much as inside, and I think that was appealing. And DOT, through my 33 years, has given me a lot of opportunities to do things inside, outside, hands-on, and direct work as well. So it's been a good choice for me.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of your professional life, what kind of hobbies or activities do you enjoy? What helps you unwind after a busy week?
Gosh, it seems to change a lot, Laura. I do a lot of things. We love going to concerts. We attend a lot of shows. We travel a good bit, and probably not, in safety mindset so much. I have motorcycles, and I enjoy riding my motorcycles all around Lexington and other parts of the state.
What originally drew you into civil engineering, and when did you realize it was the right path for you?
When I went into college, I really thought I'd major in business. If you look at the freshman yearbook, that's what it says. I was going to be a business major. Some of my roommates were in engineering, so I kind of gravitated toward that. And then, like I said, civil was so broad. It let you touch so many different things. There was a survey class, but you still had the basic chemistry, thermodynamics. Physics was never my favorite class. I knew that wasn't for me. But it just kind of doing so many things, and I was always more of a broad-based. I have a lot of diverse interests, and civil really kind of exposed me to that.
Okay. Looking back, what were big turning points or big opportunities that helped you advance to your current leadership?
You guys grew up with laptops in the classroom and things like that, and I was one of the first employees in my office to have a computer on my desk. Back then there was one in the corner, kind of like the copy machine is now, and everybody took turns, but I had my own. And so I think, I've kind of drawn to that. It gave me some things to, it aided my job and gave me a chance to create some new paths. And so I think that the technology piece really helped. The transition to an iPhone. We have iPhones at DOT, and that was important to me because I can do so much from my phone. And so those kind of things kind of helped me get my foot in the door. I moved into the role I'm in now about 10 years ago, and I was in the role for exactly 1 month when we had the major floods in South Carolina. And so it was definitely, drinking from a fire hose as we went through that flood, which was terrible in the middle. It's not so bad over here on the western edge of the state, but it was a huge response and recovery effort, And it really, you had to learn to make decisions quickly, and there were a lot of life safety things there. We're flying in helicopters, and I'm texting back to the ground to tell people, close this road, that dam's going to burst. You know what I mean? We're watching the water come down and seeing things over the top. So, I've been fortunate to be in the right place at the right time with a lot of the changes at DOT and the opportunities.
So for any students watching, thinking about a future career in engineering or engineering related or not, what habits or skills do you think are most important?
We're all a little OCD. We like everything lined up. We follow processes and procedures. And if you see that in your personality, you might be an engineer. But take time to do a summer internship. Like I said, we employ somewhere around 100 kids in the summer across all facets of DOT. Ms. Kennedy had some in her office who worked in media relations. But we have them on construction projects. We have them in traffic engineering. We have some in finance, IT. So, explore those things that you think you like, and try it as a job and see what that 9 to 5 feels like, and if it's a fit for you.
What's something you wish more people understood about the work SCDOT does behind the scenes?
I think the one thing that is hard for people to understand sometimes is there are a lot of agencies and groups who do work on our highways. It's not just DOT. And so it's hard to understand the mechanics of that. Why did you pave this road? Because most people, until you paved their road, you didn't do a good job. And so I feel like we do a very good job of utilizing the resources we have. We do, our goal is always to do as much for you as we can within the limits of what our regulation and laws allow. And so for people just to sometimes slow down and take a chance to understand why this road was paved, understand why there was a turn lane built in front of this school. That school actually built that turn lane. It was part of their requirements of developing that site. And just, I guess, and it's maybe more of a statement of our world today, just to understand why we do what we do, and, maybe we aren't all bad guys. We're trying.
When I was doing a little bit of research about the Department of Transportation, I kept seeing something called Momentum 2050. Would you mind explaining a little bit about that for people who have never heard of it?
Sure. It's just part of our development going forward and our planning stage. We got additional gas tax funds back in 2017, and that money, when you fill your vehicle up at the pump, that is the money that primarily funds us. As cars have gotten more efficient, as we see electric vehicles and hybrids, those funds haven't really kept pace with the growth of the funds, haven't kept pace with the demand on the transportation system. So we've diversified it. We're not totally funded by fuel taxes anymore, but that's part of it. But the 2017 plan gave us an infusion of money that we hadn't seen in over 30 years, and it's allowed us to really move forward on some of our paving projects, our bridge projects, safety projects, and some interstate development. Momentum 2050 will be the next stages of that, so it's our planning. But right now, our legislature is undertaking a modernization. They have a modernization committee that's looking at how DOT operates, how we're set up, how we're funded, and it's really, trying to see that state government and that legislative branch that represents the people, how it's going to bring those together and help us move forward. I know Garland and Laura are from Lexington. We see the congestion around Lexington, a small rural community that has really exploded in the last 25 years, and the congestion can be overwhelming. It takes, everywhere in Lexington is a good 20 minutes from Lexington, just to get across town. And so, bringing our resources, our elected leaders, and, people who have been professionals within the government for 20 plus years, bringing us together and trying to find a path forward.
The South Carolina Department of Transportation supports a transportation system that's essential for South Carolina's $51 billion agricultural industry. In your view, what are some of the most important ways good roads and bridges can help farmers, producers, and rural communities?
So we have the 4th largest state maintained highway system in the whole country. So, we're not the biggest state, but we maintain as a state agency more roads than all but 3 states in the nation. The connectivity is the important part of that. So the roads and bridges have to be together. So as agricultural products want to move from the farm to market, you know, is that bridge there? Is that bridge set up to hold the loads that they need to move? You know, when you move, you talked about having a combine here on campus. You know, when you're moving those large pieces of equipment, you know, is the infrastructure there? Are the roads and bridges set up to do it? So I think the connectivity between, you know, getting those products to where they need to be, whether it's to a rail station or, you know, other products to the port, having that connectivity is so important. And I think our commerce leaders and all recognize DOT's role in that, and we certainly know that we're a key part of that, and that's why we work a lot with those partners, you know, to help explain to us. We work with the Trucking Association, you know, to understand, you know, where they're moving and what their needs are. And you know, but then you get down to, you know, just the logging operations. You know, when they're doing a timber operation, and those could show up anywhere on any road. You know, and making sure that not only do we provide that connectivity and operability, but also that it's safe. That, you know, when you go riding down a small 2-lane road, and all of a sudden you come upon a log truck that just pulled out, that you have some advanced notice that can make, you know, intelligent decisions. So it's a lot of pieces that go together, but not a lot happens in this state that doesn't involve our roads and bridges. And having proper funding and the resources to do it, and we've been very fortunate the last few years. We've made a lot of strides. We've moved a lot of things forward, but we still have a ways to go, and we appreciate that. And we know that, you know, we feel like we've got the legislative support to try to work with us and make that stronger.
You've overseen many long-term infrastructure efforts. Are there any major projects underway right now that will continue long after you retire?
You know, so I-95 is 2 lanes when you come into South Carolina. You know, it's 3 lanes on the Georgia side. So we just initiated the first 8 miles widening of I-95. So that project is underway. Eventually, you know, that will make its way on up to the next, up to about mile marker 33 is kind of what's in the pipeline right now. Also getting 3 lanes between Columbia and Charleston, the entire. So those are big projects for us right now. The I-26 interchange is being rebuilt at I-95. That's huge. Williams from Spartanburg, we just redid I-85, 385 a few years ago. You know, those type of projects. So when we got the additional funding in 2017, we kind of put the money in 4 baskets. Roads for resurfacing, bridges, safety, and interstates, and that's where that money's going. So those are some of the big projects. 526 around Charleston, there are needs there. You run into bridge heights down there. You know how tall the ship can get in and out of the port down there, and so that's important for our commerce, because a lot of the products for this country, come in through that port. And so again, coordinate that effort between SCDOT and the Ports Authority to ensure that, you know, what we build is accommodating the stuff they need to move.
Everybody has to get somewhere, so transportation's a big thing. And, you know, rush hour, after work hours, traffic's a big thing. As a professional in the industry, what do you think's one tip that people can use to reduce traffic?
Reducing your trips is tough. You know, I think the Southern culture, we all like to have our own vehicle. You know, we don't rely on mass transit as much as you see some of the northeastern states. You know, it's not as big a deal. We provided tools. Early in my career, we started down the path of intelligent transportation systems, ITS, and that's where we have cameras on the road so we can, you know, view the traffic. We have an app, 511, which enables you to actually see the traffic cameras we have out there. You know, a lot of the GPS tools, your Google Maps, your Apple Maps, encompass that same thing. But it's, you know, planning your trip before you go. Maybe check it before you leave your desk to go home in the afternoon, and see what your best route is. I know how to get home. I live 10 miles from my office, but every day before I leave, I punch in my home address on my GPS, just to, you know, where's the red line, where's the yellow line, where's that fastest green line. And so it's all about using the tools that are out there to help plan your trip. We can't necessarily build our way out of congestion. We can't keep adding lanes. You know, every time we add lanes, that property's got to come from somewhere. So there are some limits there. So how can we better manage what we already have and moving that traffic through there? And the driver's part of that is, you know, taking time to plan your trip.
So for students thinking about their future, what advice would you give them for college choices, grad school? or pursuing a degree, like a professional engineering license? And like what of that has mattered the most in your career?
When it comes out of college, you need to first figure out if you can get into Clemson. That's really, really important. Now, we have several engineering schools in the state, Clemson, South Carolina, Citadel, SC State, all offer engineering programs. So that's important. You have to find that campus environment that makes you comfortable. And then again, it's exploring those interests that you have and seeing how that can, the old saying is, if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life, and it's having that. People joke and say, would you leave your job if they paid you twice as much? And I say, well, yesterday was a bad day, I don't know, for half as much. You know what I mean? And so you go through those stages, but, if you really like what you do and you feel like you're making a difference and you can impact people that you work with as well as, others around the state, I think you'll see the positives there. Internships are important. Take time to use your summer to explore a job and really get hands-on. You may find out that something you thought was going to be great isn't exactly what you envisioned, or it may be better. So give yourself that opportunity. You're young. I think a lot of folks your age don't necessarily look for 30-year careers. They look for 7 or 8 years, and they pop on to something else. And maybe that's the way we're geared going forward. But give yourselves those opportunities. Explore what's available to you. You guys have a lot of hands-on stuff here you get to do, which is really, I think, probably turns you on. I think, did any of you envision being at agriculture school when you were in 4th grade? You probably not, but here you are, and you've made a lot of it, and now you're at the agriculture school, but you're hosting a podcast. So it's, there are opportunities here, and it looks like you guys have taken advantage of that.
So our students participate in the South Carolina 4-H bridge building competition each year. What's the first thing you think students should consider before they even begin sketching a bridge design for this competition?
So we do that. We actually have a competition through our leadership program at South Carolina DOT where we do a very simple program, popsicle sticks and glue. Now, are you guys using like Elmer's glue or are you using hot glue?
Hot glue.
Okay, so that helps. Hot glue dries quickly. You don't have to worry about it. We say curing, but you don't have to worry about it drying. So I talked about engineers, a lot of us being OCD. The consistency of your shapes and the amount of glue you use is going to be important. The weakest link in the chain, so you want to always, to help balance your structure and to make it as strong as possible, keep your triangles as consistent as you possibly can. And again, make sure you give your glue time to dry. And glue guns can be a little tough, but try to keep that amount of glue as similar. The more symmetry you have in those triangles, the better off you're going to be with your structure.
What principles or techniques help young builders create a bridge that can both be light and strong with limited materials?
Yeah, just thinking about the popsicle sticks, the triangle is your strongest shape. They're either going to be in pure tension or pure compression, depending on where they're at in your structure. Your depth will also give you some strength. But if you get too deep and not wide enough, you're going to cause buckling in the middle. So your popsicle sticks are rarely going to fail in tension. So as you build it, know that it's going to be that buckling, and it's going to be those inconsistencies. Did you not put the right amount of glue over here? What made it different? And it'll become evident to you when you start loading it up, and as that load goes on there and you break it, you'll see where you made your mistakes and where stuff. But again, being as methodical and consistent in that process is going to give you some of your best chances to come out first. And I know that's important to you, Garland, because you kept telling us, well, I was in this competition, I finished second. I was in this one, I finished first. So I know that where you finish is important. And that's okay. Competition is good among your friends.
Mm-hmm. So in your experience, what common mistakes do students or real-world designers make whenever they're building bridges in general?
I would say not just bridges, but what we do is communication and talking to your teammates and making sure how many people are building these bridges. Do you know, is it going to be 3 of you, 5 of you?
4.
4 per team. but that communication between you, making sure that everybody knows their roles and responsibilities, and that that you begin with the end in mind, that you know what you're going to finish up with, and everybody knows that up front. Communication is key no matter what we do, and being able to break that down and talk to each other and keep everybody tuned in with the same process. I think throughout my career, communication has always been the number one thing. I think that's something I do pretty well, because I don't put a lot of stock in your feelings. I'm going to tell you if you're doing it right or if you're doing it wrong, and we have to have that sometimes, because we're making, our bridges aren't just popsicle stick bridges. We're making real world decisions, and we have life safety issues to consider.
If you could give our teams one pro tip to help them stand out, what would it be?
Oh, that's tough, Laura. I still say it's going to be the consistency, and I think I keep hammering on that, but making sure that all your shapes are the same size as you arrange them is where you'll get some of the different bending moments to take them forward. But just seriously, take time to try and get each. I don't know if you have the ability to weigh those little things, so you know how much glue you got on there, because you can always peel off a little bit of that stuff. But yeah, that was my. And I want to make sure I'm not a bridge nerd. I'm a traffic guy. But I talked to some really good bridge nerds, and I was like, what's the main thing? And the consistency was the main thing that they told me.
In the bridge competition, the 4-H one, we get 50 popsicle sticks and 4 glue sticks. You mentioned earlier that the SCDOT does something similar for a leadership program. So I know that 4-H does these competitions to help spark interest in careers and hobbies. And how does the SCDOT's competition help with leadership?
Sure. You know what, I think, and it's an important part, because we're not just building bridges with our engineers. We're taking our communication staff, like folks from Tina's office. We're taking even attorneys, participate, or and bringing that together. So it's about, who got the bridge engineer on their team? We did. Well, then we need to lean on him for that knowledge. You know what I mean? But maybe that bridge engineer isn't the guy that you need out front speaking to people, because that's not his strength. So you learn each other's strengths and weaknesses. And again, it's about that communication. You learn how to get, so it's a team building. I think healthy competition really fosters a good environment at work. And we have a healthy back and forth. As Laura knows, her dad's in our office. We give Alan a hard time. We put ducks all over his Jeep, and we have fun with him. But it's that building of that relationship. We consider ourselves a family. I think we pull together in tough times. One of our mottos is one DOT. So it doesn't really matter that you're a bridge engineer. Today we've got a road flooded, and we need help over here. Today you're going to help us do that. We've got a district that has been devastated by a hurricane. We're moving stuff, and all the grocery stores are closed, and we got to feed our people. So you might be used to designing roads and roundabouts. Today you're going to drive food cars, and so that's what we foster with these competitions. Again, it's fun to see where people's strengths and weaknesses are. The bridge designs get crazy. There's graffiti on the bridges. There'll be stuff like, Andy loves Gamecocks, which everybody knows is not true, but they'll paint little things on them. So they make fun. They have fun with each other doing it, and it's just building that team atmosphere and that interaction, that personal interaction. That's what we get out of it, because our people have made their professional decisions. We're not trying to draw them into engineering, because they're already there. But for you guys, I think you'll see that. But you're still going to learn teamwork. You're still going to learn that communication part. So it's a good tool regardless of what your career path may be.
Mr. Leapart for meeting with us today, and that will conclude with our Carolina Field, Forest, and Water podcast. I'm William Cutshaw.
I'm Garland Wilson.
And special guest Laura Hutto.
Please tune in next time.